Today on the My Team series, I'm joined by Jamie Pigott, last season's winner, a humongous episode. And Jamie, today you're going to be put up against some of the best minds in the FPL community. And then, at the minute, based on form, you are the best mind in the FPL community. What was it like winning FPL?
Oh, it was real exciting. I kind of stormed ahead at the very end of the season, so it was unexpected for large periods of the season. So at the end of finishing first was quite surreal.
A big relief. Like, where did you watch that final game, or was it like, on the fly, or did you make a day of it?
Yeah, I was told a couple people, but I was debating whether I was going to hide behind my couch on that final day. Was convinced to come out and join a couple other people in the FPL Twitter community at a bar nearby with some friends and family, and had a hectic day watching all 10 games at the same time.
Jeez, yeah. I'd say that was like proper edge of the seat stuff and highs and lows. But I suppose, like, before we get into the video, we're going to build your current draft for the upcoming season. If you had one tip for FPL managers that sort of helped your season last season, what is it?
One tip. There's a lot that...
Give us them all. What have you time for?
we'll be on here for too long. No, I think the biggest thing I could say is planning ahead and understanding the unique trends of a given season. Last season was pretty unique in that, we had so many doubles at the end, and I tried to play to that and play to the strength of what was out there from a fixture, and try to find where the points are in this season. And with this season, it's different with the World Cup. So planning ahead, trying to understand what the kind of upcoming trends are that are unique to that season. Don't ignore those and kind of jump on them before too long. Don't wait too long. Don't be too stubborn.
The kind of soundbite so far of the preseason has been that it's 4 sprints, not a marathon. Do you buy into that for this season with the World Cup and obviously essentially like an extra wild card? When you're already looking ahead to that planning, is there anything that stands out to you for this season that's different?
I think it's totally true. I think that you can kind of mentally split it up into different segments of the season, and the World Cup just throws a huge curveball in it that makes the season so much different than previous seasons. Hopefully we don't have quite as many postponed games this year, so that we don't have to deal with that challenge. The wild card, the World Cup unlimited transfers really throws kind of a new wrinkle into it that I'm looking to potentially wild card early and try to take some risks up front early with the idea of, attack. We've got, we don't need our first wild card to last quite as long as previous seasons. And so I think it lends itself to an earlier wild card as being something that could pay dividends. Don't know, and kind of looking forward to seeing how the first couple of weeks go and what we learn in those few weeks, because there's a lot to know that we don't know right now. And that may depend or sway what I do, but that's kind of where my head's at right now.
Yeah, I suppose being proactive about the season ahead as opposed to reactive is kind of what will ultimately win the game long term. Mm-hmm. I have a couple more questions before we build this team. One is, what on earth did you get for winning FPL?
Well, so far nothing yet. I'm still waiting on it, but it'll come soon. It's I get a trip to come out, so being in the US, I get to come across the pond, go to a couple games. So that'll be fun. I think we get about a week of attractions and travel and accommodations when we come out. So I've got some dates into the Premier League and they're sorting through the details of when that's going to happen. That'll be cool. And then I got a couple other things. I got a PlayStation 5, a Hublot watch, and kind of bag of swag kind of stuff. But the main prize is the trip.
Yeah. And did you have to pick a game?
Yeah. So they asked me what games I'd want to go. And as a Spurs fan, I obviously want to go to a couple Spurs games. So I did pick a couple, but they said it's kind of hit or miss depending on, which I thought was interesting. The Premier League doesn't know if they can get tickets to Premier League matches.
You're joking me. Like, they don't know if they can get your tickets.
Yeah, no. So I don't know if they just said it's like hit or miss, I think, depending on the stadiums and if it's sold out or whatnot. I don't know. But so they told me it's hit or miss, and I'll see if they can get the ones that I put in.
That's bad. That's actually shocked me. Today, we're going to build your team. We're going to start at the back. We're going to work to the top. And what I'll ask you to tell me first is, who is your backup goalkeeper?
My backup goalkeeper is anybody who's 4-0 that is the cheapest. I think right now I've got Steele in there, but not by any particular intent. Just it's never going to play. Just throw in a 4.0.
You're not going to be tripling up on Brighton, so who cares?
Yeah, exactly. The key is don't block a spot that you want to use elsewhere, and just make it so it's cheap.
Make it so it's cheap. So bargain basement here with Steele. Who is your starting goalkeeper?
Yeah, right now I'm going with Ederson. Not because I think he's just the best pick, but I really don't love any of the 4.5s, especially if I'm taking an early wild card, if I'm trying to attack the first couple fixtures. I don't really like any of the 4-5 goalkeepers from a clean sheet perspective. The fixtures just don't play out very well. Ederson's part of that Man City defense. It's a cheap way into the defense, and you get access to clean sheets. I don't really expect hauls from Ederson, but he'll hopefully provide some consistency from that spot.
Yeah, in my current draft, I actually have Ederson, and it is interesting because a lot of people are going for Raya, who's 4.5, but you're not a Raya fan. I mean, obviously they've got Strakosha signed, but I think Brentford fans seem to think he will still be number one.
Yeah, I know. I liked Raya as more of a longer term pick, and maybe I go Raya later in the season, but right from the beginning, I don't love the clean sheet perspectives from Brentford in those first couple fixtures. Like I said, if I'm being aggressive up front and trying to attack early with the idea that I can wild card in a couple weeks, I don't necessarily feel like Raya is the best risk to take there.
Yeah, that's fair. So we'll move into defense, and I'm going to ask you to give me your most boring pick first, and we leave any differentials to the end. So who's your most boring defender?
Most boring, I guess, is the one that's the most owned, which would be Trent Alexander-Arnold. One of, if not the best value pick across any player in the game. He scored in the Community Shield today. He's just absolute bonus point monster and gets all the attacking returns from that position. He's just pivotal to the way that Liverpool play.
Yeah, hopefully with that goal, he's encouraged to shoot a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But he's, best value player for me as well. Absolutely agree. We'll move on to your second most boring player.
My second most boring player would be the next most owned, I think, but Cancelo. From a similar perspective, he's one of the best assets from City. He's going to get the most minutes in that defense, maybe bar Diaz or Laporte when he's healthy. Big question mark as to exactly how he plays with the new personnel that they've got, but he's still a great pick, and he's my number 2 in there.
You've got the Ederson-Cancelo double up. I'm interested to see how you use the third slot if you use it. Who is your third defender?
For third defender, I'm going to stick with my Spurs roots and go with Perisic. Ooh. I was kind of hesitant on Perisic, waiting to see, based on how much he's played preseason. I was just nervous as to whether he's going to get the start. He started in today's preseason match against Roma for Spurs, and with that, he's almost a lock in my mind for starting game week 1. When you get a winger playing in defense in a team that's got fairly decent defense from a clean sheet perspective, it's no-brainer to me. Just hope he plays. That's the key. Spurs have too many wingbacks to make it an easy decision.
I suppose in the early couple of weeks, Cancelo and Trent have great fixtures in game week 2 where Perisic is up against Chelsea. So maybe depending on your other picks, you'll have the depth to rotate. But on top of that, you've Forest and Fulham there in 4 and 6. So I know the early wildcard might pop, but that City in game week 7, maybe Perisic doesn't make it to game week 7 in this team, but great to sort of speculate on early doors at that price.
Mm-hmm.
Is this any bias coming in here?
For sure. I'd be lying if I didn't say that I love a little bit of Spurs bias. FPL is just that much better when you're rooting for your own team. Put that aside, I don't make decisions in a vacuum around my team. I'm picking them because they're part of my team, but they're also good picks in isolation. So Perisic is in, but yeah, I like a good Spurs player in my team.
Did you last season, did you take that into account? Was there any point where you had to was there a point where you were like, oh my God, I'm rank whatever and it's week whatever, I maybe need to get rid of the Spurs? Now, in fairness, they did pretty well, but Was there a point where you had to try and detach more from that bias, or did you just not really play up to it too much during the season?
I actually was doing really well, and I was in the top 50. And at that point, I actually pivoted to try to get both Kane and Son on my team. So almost the exact opposite. But I didn't think about that. That wasn't factoring into it. It was because I was trying to navigate the blank game week. In game week 30, they both had a game. They were the best two options. And so to cover people who are free hitting, I navigated a way to get them both. Son particularly just crushed it at the end of the season. So part of the reason why I won was because I stuck with Spurs, not the other way around.
We'll move on. Who is the fourth player in this defense?
The fourth player in my defense right now is going to be Kieran Trippier, in my opinion, best defender in that Newcastle team. They've got two good fixtures off the bat in week 1 and 2. They've got a couple tougher ones with City and Liverpool coming up, but Trippier is one of those players who he's not, again, similar to all of these players, he's not just a defender. He's on set pieces. He's going to be in and around assists and getting the team chances. And so that's what one of the key things I'm looking for in a defender, and Trippier fits that bill at a slightly lower price than some of these other guys. I think he's my favorite 5 million defender right now.
Yeah, I think he just absolutely nailed there. Talisman, set pieces, all the rest, as you say. I love him as a pick. I think more of the community are. At 5 million, he's definitely an option for people who maybe want to pick either Perisic or him. There's $500,000 in the bank. If people want to downgrade Reece James because of Chelsea's ropey defensive stats over pre-season, that's $1 million in the bank. Mm-hmm. So I really like him, and he's in my current draft, and that's given me an extra $1 million to spend further up the pitch. So Trippier, while he might have seemed a bit differential, he seems to be becoming a little more template as time goes on. I'm interested to see, is this fifth defender going to be a starting player or a bench player?
It's going to be a starting player. I'm going 5 at the back. This one I'm the least sure about right now from the defense, and right now I'm leaning towards Zinchenko. So he's in there right now. Hopefully, or the idea is, I think that he may find himself playing further up the pitch with his move to Arsenal. But it's kind of a bit of a question mark, but he's got the pedigree and kind of the previous skills from playing midfield for Ukraine to be a good pick. And it gives me some exposure to Arsenal's defense since they've got some good fixtures over the first handful of weeks. Although it's not quite settled, I'm not sold on Arsenal's defense. It's still, I think he's a decent pick, but again, one that I'm maybe the least sure about from a defense right now.
So we'll move into midfield. Who is your most template pick?
Most template pick is the best player in the game. We're going with Salah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Son after your talk earlier.
I'd be lying if I said Son was the best player in the game, but no, I mean, Salah, I think in the Community Shield today, he got the equivalent of a 13-point FPL haul against the best team in the league. So it'd be hard for me not to go with Salah out the start.
Who's your second most template pick?
My second most template pick, would probably be one of the midfielders on my bench. But Andreas, he's 4.5, all you can ask for in that position. So he's going to sit on my bench probably in the first spot for a while, and we'll see what he does. Not really expecting much there, but he's there in the wings waiting if need be.
Who is your third pick?
Third pick, I'm going to go with Martinelli. It's one of those cases where I had Martinelli last year, so some of his outcome bias of, he got me a brace, he's gotten me a couple of returns last year on my way to winning, that may play into it. But at the same time, he's been, I think, the starting left winger for Arsenal, and he's at 6 million. So he's 2 million cheaper than Saka and Jesus in that squad. He's getting assists in preseason, just getting in the right minutes, getting in good positions. If his minutes are locked, I think with the fixtures that Arsenal have, he'll be good and he'll get returns. And so for the value there, that's the main reason he's there. From what I saw last year and watching Arteta, he tends to stick with whoever's in form. So even if if Martinelli hits the ground running, I think it's his spot to lose. It wouldn't be until maybe he drops form or is injured, Smith Rowe comes in, Smith Rowe performs, then I don't see Martinelli easing back into it. But I think it's his to lose at the beginning. And again, since I'm leaning towards earlier wild card, I guess I'm willing to take that risk that he does, and hopefully he gets the minutes to justify it.
Amazing. Who is your fourth midfielder?
The fourth pick I've got right now is Grealish.
I like it.
I think based on what we've seen, I think he's the most likely to start on that left wing position. He started today in the Community Shield. I think that helps to reinforce it. Although I didn't watch all of it, but he didn't really impress incredibly. Not really looking into that too much, but I still expect that he'd probably start on the left in game week 1. And City was playing Liverpool today. They're not going to be playing Liverpool in week 1 or 2 or 3. So I expect Grealish is there now. It could become somebody else, but I like a little bit of exposure to City's attack right now, but he may not be there come Friday.
Was it value was the play with Grealish, or is it that you genuinely like him more than the others in terms of those 3 City assets?
It's a little bit of both. The value is nice. It fits better with my team. But at the same time, Grealish has been playing most of the minutes in preseason. I would expect he'd start in game week 1. And for that reason, I think he's more likely to start than the others. And City, you go into City lineup and you expect that there's going to be carnage. Nobody having a City attacker, you should not go in expecting that they're going to start every game or get a long period of minutes every time. So know with that expectation, no matter who you pick, it could be the time that they sit out, the time that somebody else gets the goal, just the way that they play. So I like a little bit of exposure, but again, I'm not 100% sold on it. I'll think about that slot a little bit more this week and after kind of the rest of the weekend, digest what comes up at a press conferences leading up to game week 1, and I'll make my decision there.
Amazing. So who's the 5th spot in midfield?
The 5th spot I've got right now is De Silva. So another bench spot in my midfield.
No, a lot of people are going for De Silva, look very promising, and then obviously injury trouble. People are predicting him to be back. Second midfield bench spot, you're not expecting to need him much, are you?
No, not expecting much, especially with 5 subs. I expect we'll need our bench even less. I didn't use my bench much last season either, except for, some of the postponements. There were areas in blank game weeks where it was helpful, but I never really dipped deep into my bench. I'm not somebody who usually has a deep bench throughout the season. Maybe the first spot has a little bit more budget, but at the beginning of the season where budget's a little bit tighter and we've got, like I said, keep coming back to this, I'm willing to take more of that risk since I'm planning to wildcard earlier. That can help push more budget into my starting 11.
Very good. We'll move up to the front line. Now, the big question here was going to be Kane or Haaland, but now the question is, and you're a Spurs fan and there's no Son, so I'm going to put my balls in the line and say you've picked Harry Kane.
I did, yep.
You did.
Your balls are safe.
So my balls are safe. So Harry Kane, Haaland, was that a decision for you? Tell me how you decided Kane over Haaland, or was Haaland never in the reckoning? What's the thought process?
Kane is actually, and when I was thinking about this ever since the game came out, Kane was the first name on my team sheet. I think he's going to have a hell of a year this year. This year more so than previous years. Last year, I think people point to how bad he started, but you forget that Spurs as a team started terrible. Nuno was not a great fit for Spurs, and there was a lot of distraction around Kane. His failed move to City, didn't have much faith, I think, in the project at Spurs at the time. And then Conte came in and changed the whole thing. They finished the season on a high. He goes into a summer where he actually has a break for once. He comes back to a full preseason with Conte. He's got the World Cup in the fall that he loves loves scoring a goal for England. I think he's going to be really motivated to hit the ground running. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see Kane flirting with a 30-goal season this year. I think that he hits the ground running, and I think he's just looking at Haaland versus Kane. I like Kane better. I also have some reservations around Haaland ever from the beginning because just new players, new system, from a tactical perspective that sometimes takes a little while to vet. And I'm willing to be a little bit more patient with Haaland. He's going to be in my team at some point this season, no doubt. It just depends on when that is. Right now, it's Kane from the get-go. I'll go back to it. I love a bit of Spurs bias. It's makes those games watching a little bit more fun.
I'm feeling more and more vindicated as this My Team series goes on, because for the last 2-3 weeks, I've been Team Kane over Haaland because I think he's just the pick. But time will tell. I think both are great picks. Who is your second forward? You're still 14 million in the bank, which is interesting.
Yep, my second forward is Vardy. This is a little bit spicy.
This is as spicy as I've seen. That's the first out of, I think you're like the 13th contestant, and that's the first Vardy we've had.
Vardy typically starts seasons pretty hot. I like Leicester's first couple fixtures. This is another one where I'm only focusing on the short term. I like their first and third fixture. Vardy likes playing Arsenal. I'm willing to be a little bit different in this spot. It's not, most people are going to have Jesus. And the way I see it is I'm planning that early wild card. I've got Vardy for 3 weeks after game week 3 when he plays Southampton at home, which is to me one of the best fixtures that you can have. Kane's got it week 1, Vardy's got it week 3. After that game, their fixtures get tougher, but I think Vardy's also an easy pivot down to some of the other forwards. Like if Jesus hits the ground running, he has in preseason, but we don't know for sure if he's going to once, the first game they play at Crystal Palace, I think people are overestimating what Arsenal's going to do in that game. And I'm willing to see and wait and say, all right, Jesus hurt me a little bit before, and if I need to, I'll make the switch and I'll go Vardy back down to Jesus if I'm proven wrong right off the bat. But I like Vardy as a kind of a high potential. He can score a couple goals in any game. So right off the bat, I like playing that a little bit different. Part of my philosophy of winning last year and just the way I play the game, I like to be a little bit different. I don't love to just go along with the crowd. So I like Vardy right now. That's where I am. And I'm thinking I'm locked in there, but we'll see in the next couple of days.
Speaking of differentials, that is one of the biggest differentials we've seen. Whenever you have the option of picking a guy who's cheaper, who's over 60% owned at time of recording, and you've went for a guy who's sub 5% at time of recording, I think that is ballsy. And I really respect it, and I hope it works out. Well, I kind of don't hope it works out for you, because then it won't have worked out for me, because I don't have the balls to do that. I love the logic behind it. I love the aggression. We're all talking about being aggression because it's 4 sprints, not a marathon. You're actually doing it. I'm here bigging up the child, being like, be aggressive, do this, do that, and then I'm going to pick a relatively template team with maybe one or two slightly differential, meaning 15-20% owned. For you, Vardy, hats off, sir. That is the biggest twist of the series. Last season's FPL winner picking Jamie Vardy. I love it.
So you 4.5 a little Jamie to Jamie action there.
Oh, a little Jamie to Jamie action. There we go. So who is your third forward? You're 4.5. Do you care much about this pick, or have you thrown it in?
No, I picked Archer because he's, I think, at that 4.5 million level. He is somebody who could, if he gets a minute or a sub appearance, he could poke in a goal, but that's about it. Not really looking for much there.
Cool. So look, this is your team. We're going to hit it and basically see your team rating, your game week rating, and your predicted points. The team rating basically looks over the next 5 weeks and weights heavier towards the current week and weights less towards the 5th week, and so on in between. The game week rating is basing it for the upcoming game week. Now, obviously, we don't build teams with just one game week in mind, so that might be not the most useful for our purpose of looking into the season. And then the predicted points is the points that the algorithm predicts this team will score in game week 1. So we're going to hit go. We're going to see what happens. We're going to optimize the team. And we're going to see what team rating you come out with and stick you on the leaderboard.
Let's do it.
95% team rating, game week rating 92, predicted points 69.9. Let's call it 70. Jimmy, if I said to you, you could have 70 points in game week 1, would you take it?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about on average, I think, 70 is probably better than average. So then, I'll take 70 points.
Absolutely. So that's a great result, by the way. That puts you 3rd place. So you're in the podium when 13 people up. So we have another 7 guests to come. Let's see if you can hang on to the podium. 95%, 70 points for game week 1, Let's see how it transpires. Jamie, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. I appreciate being on.
If you want to get your team rated, click the link in the description. Head over to Fantasy Football Hub. You don't need to sign up. Go and plug your team in and see how you're set for the first week and for subsequent weeks. And let us know in the comments how many points your team is going to score in Game Week 1. Let's see who can do the best.